So we are here at Hidden Habitat with Laura Thomas, and we're going to learn a little bit more today about native plants and specifically how native plants can support wildlife. So let's get into it. So can you tell us a little bit about what a native plant is?
Sure. So a native plant is something that's been on the landscape for a really long time. You know, historically, we used to always say if it was a plant that existed in a space, say Ontario, prior to colonization. What we value or what we put focus more on is like the relationship that plant has in the ecosystem with, you know, the other species. It's important to note too that like not all native plants are kind of equal. So if your primary goal is to support wildlife, it's kind of nice to be aware of that.
And what kind of, maybe the top 3 sort of native plants for Ontario can they grow in their backyard to sort of facilitate a good habitat for wildlife?
The best thing you can really do is plant a native tree. Planting an oak tree or a cherry tree or a willow tree is going to be the best thing because they support the most amount of moth and butterfly caterpillars. So like oak tree family, like the Quercus family, will support over like 500 different species. If we don't have the space, then, you know, goldenrods are terrific. And there's probably like a dozen, if not more, different species of goldenrod.
So how can growing a native species help people sort of interact with nature in a more meaningful way?
When we plant native plants and then, you know, you're able to go out in the garden and actually see wildlife using it. So you're able to see like a monarch caterpillar eating the milkweed or like an evening primrose moth kind of like just hanging out in the flower. It's such a huge benefit that, you know, like you're actively helping something. Like I feel like there's a lot of like eco-anxiety and people are so like anxious about where things are in the world right now. So when we do that, we're able to see like a direct benefit. People always make the assumption that when you garden with native plants or if you want to support wildlife, that it has to be like messy or not maintained well, that it has to have like this certain aesthetic. And to be honest, sometimes when we want to support nature or mimic nature, nature does really like a little bit of a mess and a little bit of chaos, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can definitely have a very more formal garden.
So Laura, where can our audience find more about Hidden Habitat?
Probably the best way is just directly from our website, which is hiddenhabitat.ca.
Okay.
And then the nursery is located just outside of Gravenhurst in Kilworthy in Muskoka.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. That was so much information about gardening for wildlife and native plants. Wow.